This is The Naked Patient, Beyond the Operating Room. Listen as Dr. Nicholas Howland talks with real patients about their real experiences with plastic surgery.
Hello, welcome to the Naked Patient Podcast. I'm Dr. Nicholas Howland. With me today is my very good friend, Beth Clifford. We're going to get into her as a patient. She is also the owner and founder of the Elevate 365 podcast, mother of 3 kids, wife of one of my really good friends, Brad Clifford. We'll get Brad on here at some point, but we're going to start with Beth.
Hi.
We'll build up to Brad.
Thank you for having me.
Sorry if that undercut you a little bit.
No, it's fine. Listen, people meet me first and then they meet Brad and they always love Brad.
Brad's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's everyone's favorite for sure.
But listen, you know that for Brad to be amazing, you must be pretty friggin' fantastic.
I mean, some days, yeah, it depends on the day. But here we are. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. I come into these things with like a little bit of a plan. We're going to talk about, and it's very plastic surgery adjacent. Like we'll get around to some stuff because we've done some plastic surgery for you, and we'll get around to that. But I want to start with kind of where you and I first met, because we had a relationship that, at least for me, was a struggle.
Was it?
And you don't know that. You don't know this.
I didn't know this. Well, I mean, I knew you weren't using my product.
Okay.
That's all I knew.
Explain what you did and how we met.
So I work for the largest medical aesthetic company in the world, actually. But one of their divisions, they have 4 divisions, and I was in the surgical division at the time, selling breast implants. So I met you as your breast implant rep is where we first met years ago.
I wasn't using Allergan from the start?
No, you were not. You were using one of our competitors, both of our competitors, but not really.
Okay.
Not really us. I feel like you were dabbling. I got like a third of your business, and I knew that you were a young up and coming surgeon. I was like, no, I gotta get his business early because you're going to be operating for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my approach at the start. When you first come into practice, there's 3 FDA approved breast implant companies. I know you know this. This is for the dozens of listeners.
This is for your thousands of listeners at home.
Yes. So of the 3, when you come into practice your first year, all 3 of the companies give you as a new surgeon like a really good deal, where it's like half off the implants or something.
Yeah, if you're building your book of business and building your business, we want to help with your margins.
Oh, yeah. And so one of the first things I did is I said, we're going to run a special on breast augmentations right off the bat to hopefully get my foot in the door. And I'm going to just use all 3 of these implants and not be dedicated to one, because I want to spread out that deal I was getting. Allergan, though, I have always been a huge fan of Allergan.
Yeah.
They're the most expensive implant on the market.
Well,
they're the best implant on the market.
You get what you pay for.
Absolutely. So
what was the struggle, though?
Oh, okay. So this may be just me personally.
Yeah.
But I always have struggled with my relationships with reps as a surgeon.
I can see that.
Because you never know if the relationship you're getting is real and authentic, or if it's just them doing their job. Because your job is to get my business to make me feel good.
Specifically with, not for every rep, not for every product line, I should say. But specifically with implants, yes, because as a rep, there's really not very much you can do to grow the business. Like, you can't go find patients for you. You're essentially fighting to the death for that patient that's on your table, almost. So you can't go grow the pie. You're just constantly working to get a bigger piece of the pie. And approach is different based on the rep. There are a lot of medical device reps out there, and I know my husband's been in the industry for 15 years too. A lot of reps rely 100% on relationships, meaning they will just go in and become your best friend so that you buy from them because you like them.
Oh, yeah.
That is, and it definitely was the old school approach. That has actually never been my approach. I think my approach was always like, let me help you grow your business and make money. And then you'll probably end up using my implants. But I wouldn't describe, I mean, you know this now because you know me. And I'm not like the most friendly character out there. And I don't like most people I meet. So I wouldn't really choose to be like friends with people I work with. I try and keep my work life and my personal life separate at all times, which you know now. But I can see how in the beginning you'd be like, okay, so she just being nice to me because she wants my business, or is she being nice to me because she actually like we vibe?
Oh yeah, I always you always question that, because I had as a surgical resident, I had a lot of experiences. There's one in particular. We had a surgeon that nobody really liked the guy. He was he was kind of a jerk, and he was kind of pompous and arrogant, and there was a rep who was just this young, cool kid. And that's like rep company's MO, right? You have to be a model or an ex-college athlete or
some medical devices, not Allergan, interestingly enough. I feel like the entire division of Allergan are like my dad. But most medical device companies hire a specific type of person, either former athletes. I feel like my husband, Brad, worked at Stryker for a decade. It was like clones. I would see his friends. They were all, his entire team. They all look the exact same.
Oh, yeah. And it's even worse in the orthopedic side versus. And this was the plastic side. And so this guy would come in, and he was like an ex-college athlete, and he would come in just buddy with this guy, act like they're best friends, and you're like, he doesn't like this guy. Yeah. But that surgeon would use his product over anything else all the time, very clearly, because he thought he was like good friends with this guy.
But so I have a question on that, back to the surgeons, because for me, my approach as a rep, and sometimes, and now I'm in a different position, and I'm kind of in leadership, but I coach a lot of sales reps, and oftentimes I'm like, if you aren't adding value, even if you're their best friend, but you're not adding value, why would they still have you in this day and age? For me, I'm like, don't you want a rep that's going to come in and help you not only understand the device the best, but find ways to help make your practice money, and also ease of use? Like, let me take all of the hard work off your plate, which is more of my MO. But on these surgeons, like, we want to blame the reps, but why are surgeons choosing devices to put in their patients based on who they're friends with?
Oh yeah,
that's also a problem. Yeah, right? And I think that's where it's both of them. So now you've got reps that only rely on relationship and no value add, and you've got surgeons that are being swayed on what they put in their patient's body, either based on one, price, or two, in our case with some of the local reps here, who they played, ward basketball with.
Yeah. 1,000%.
That's crazy.
That's a great point. That it's not just, and I apologize if I came across as just the reps, because it's just as much the surgeon's fault. I agree.
I'm agreeing with you. It's just, this is unfortunately a dynamic that's been created before you and I were even doing what we're doing now. Sure. I mean, this has been going on for decades.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the heart of sales, and
somewhat,
in essence.
You want to see who you like. So even if you love someone's product but you can't stand the rep, you're not gonna. You're not going to want them in your practice. I mean, there's an essence to, obviously we want to work with people we like. We want to promote people we like. I mean, that is natural. But I didn't even think about that, Nick. But now I'm like, I can see why in the beginning someone would be hesitant to create a friendship with their rep. I can see that.
And like I said, this is a very me thing. This is nothing with you, because you and I developed a friendship. And a working relationship.
Yeah.
And you then got a promotion with Allergan and moved on from, you were no longer my implant rep.
I'm actually no longer in that division, so I have no affiliation with it right now.
Even in my mind, I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And
you went into business with my husband.
We're going to see. And then I went into business with Brad, and we're still friends. And so I was like, okay. I can trust this now. But I don't know, that relationship with reps, with employees, with I try to be really close with my employees. I mean, in the healthcare industry and as a surgeon, I see my employees more than I see my family.
Yeah.
And so I consider them family. And I think to my fault, sometimes I'm almost too close. And so sometimes that line between business and not business and pleasure, that's a terrible
business and personal.
Business and personal can get faded.
It is hard though, because when you're like a personal person, you kind of lead with like yellow energy, like you are, and green energy if you're like a color insights person, which I am. Like you want to take care of everyone, but you also want to have fun and involve everyone.
Tell me the green energy. I've heard yellow energy, but I don't know the green energy.
Is like, some people call it white, but green is like they're natural caregivers. A lot of physicians are green. That's why they go into the field, either green or blue. Blue is very clinical, but green, a lot of nurses are green. Like your caregivers, you want the best for them. You feel like invested in people. You want to create peace. Like you don't want contention. If you're planning a party, you're thinking about your guest experience. Like, what are they going to experience? If you're yellow, you're thinking of, is it fun? Is it loud enough? If it's red, you're thinking about, well, where's everyone going to park? Yeah. And if it's blue, you're like calculating the receipts to make sure that, it's just everyone has
their role.
Yeah. And we all have all of those colors in us, but we just have certain energies that are easier to flex for us. They just come more natural. And I think that when you're a natural caregiver and you also want to be inclusive and create fun, it would be hard not to develop personal relationships with your coworkers. I mean, I worked for my company for almost 8 years, and like half of my best, closest friends in life are coworkers now.
Yeah.
And that's, it's just, you spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
You talk to them a lot. Like
absolutely.
You'd have to be like a robot not to develop some kind of personal friendship with people that you're around that much.
So I kind of like that you brought up this color energy thing, because energy is something that I have focused more closely on in the last 6 to 8 months, almost. I would say about a year.
Okay.
And I actually was listening to your podcast on the way here, doing my homework.
So much to learn about that podcast.
And you had your brother Sam on, and you guys were talking about authenticity and living a more authentic life.
Yes.
And that is something that has been a huge journey of mine in the last year, is being more authentic, both with myself and with others. Mm-hmm. And I think energy plays a huge part of that. Like people who are living authentically, you can feel that energy.
Yes. You
can feel whether they're there, present, upfront, real, and you can feel if they're hiding something.
Well, yes and no. Yes, I can if you care enough to pay attention to them. There are people out there that aren't paying attention, or they're in a social situation and they're more in their own head. But if you are paying attention to how you feel, or you're talking to someone and what they're doing, you can pick up on energy. And the thing is you want someone who'll show up the same regardless of their environment. I think that's when you're like, this person's authentic. What's hard is if you're like, oh, wow, this person, when they're with me in this group at work, they're like this way. But then like, are they going to embarrass me, or are they going to behave a completely different way when they're in a different group setting, or they don't show up as who they are consistently. So that's when it's hard to trust, because you're like, I don't actually know who you are, which I can see that's probably the first thoughts that go through people's heads when they meet sales reps, or if there's something in it for them, you're like, is this actually who you are? Is this actually what you think? Or are you just saying this because you need something out of me in this situation? But if you weren't to live an authentic life, it's got to be so tiring.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah, it's got to be really tiring. That's what I was talking to my brother with, who is gay and was raised Mormon. Mm-hmm. It's got to be really tiring. And I think, like, bring it back to plastic surgery. If people get plastic surgery and they aren't, I don't have to go into a lot of detail, but if they aren't even a little bit open with it, like someone notices something different, but they want to hide it and stuff, like it's got to be exhausting to keep up with, like, the lie. And why did I tell this person? And, why was I out for 2 weeks? Or like, why did I have bruises all over my body?
People do that.
It's crazy.
That's one of my main missions with the podcast, is to take away some of that shame that we've attached to it. Yeah. And I think that that's an underlying theme of why people don't live authentically, is because they've got some sort of a shame attached to what they're not being authentic about.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, or they feel shame in who they really are.
Yes.
Like who they are, and they recognize who they are, and they feel a lot of shame, like there's something wrong with them for thinking or wanting that, like for wanting bigger boobs, and there's shame in that because we're supposed to love our bodies the way they are. So Utah, I don't know if it's still the stat because I'm not in the plastics arena as much now, but Utah used to have the most breast dogs per capita. So we don't have as many people, but per capita people who live in the state. Plastic surgery was the second highest state after Florida because of Miami. Miami's like
this
insane.
Was years ago. It was probably I want to say 2017, somewhere around there, 5 or 6 years ago. It might have even been further back, but it was kind of a big shock piece that a lot of like media outlets around the country picked up on. Somebody did a survey, and Salt Lake was number 2 per capita in the country for plastic surgery.
Yes.
And everybody was like, oh my, what, not Beverly Hills, what's going on? And so all these people kind of ran with that. And it was true. And it's since fallen off, like Salt Lake. And if you combine Salt Lake and Utah counties, they're probably somewhere in the top 5 or 6 around the country.
It's still high.
It's very high. And I actually gave a talk on this a couple months ago about why that might be. And I've kind of tied it into Mormonism here in Utah. And because I think that plays a huge role in it. It's not the only answer. And so in the talk, I go into other reasons of why I feel like plastic surgery is so popular in Utah. I mean, one of those reasons is the money. Like Utah's a very wealthy place, and plastic surgery is also always going to be big wherever money is.
Correct.
It's a healthy state. And then a huge thing, I think the religion is a big thing because Mormonism is the dominant religion here, and it's a religion of perfection and trying to become like God. And so whether that's preached from the pulpit or not, how does that not get, instilled in you of, oh, I've got to make myself better?
Yes, I also think that we have, I don't disagree with anything that you said. In addition to that, I would add that this is a state where there are a lot of young mums. And for me, if you think about the female body in general, most everywhere, women are kind of, first off, I feel like your body just naturally looking good in your 20s is far easier than like the older you get, because the human body is designed to fail. So the older we get, the harder it is to keep, like how good you look in your 20s. So most women in the world are enjoying their 20s and enjoying their like hot little bodies or whatever when they're in their prime. And here, a lot of women are in and out of pregnancies in their 20s.
Yeah.
And so they get to their 30s and they never had that like hot girl summer or whatever it is so all of a sudden they want to enhance their body so they can kind of live a life that they kind of were robbed of. And when the rest of the world was enjoying being in like the prime of their bodies, a lot of Mormon women bodies are being beaten up every 2 years, pushing babies out, getting pregnant, post baby, pregnant, post baby. And I think that they don't want to live with the post pregnancy bodies for the next, 80 years, 70 years. And so they change it.
That was the rest of my talk, by the way.
Oh, damn it. Oh, sorry.
No, you nailed it.
Jump the gun there.
You nailed it. That's a huge point in it. Utah has the highest birth rate in the country. No shocker there. No. What's more interesting though is if you drill down into the numbers, they have the highest rate of multiple pregnancies of women in their 20s. Because
what's the divorce rate?
It's the same. It's pretty standard across the board.
Oh, it is? Mm-hmm. Okay, because I also think probably that might play a factor if there are more divorces and then like you're single again, and so you also want your body to look good.
That's fair.
Because you're out dating again, so that, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud, but that is interesting. That's why I got surgery. That's exactly why I did. I had 3 kids in my late 20s, and I got my first breast aug after my second kid because I had natural D's. So it wasn't like I didn't grow up with boobs. Like I get if you don't, and then you're like, I just want to fill out a shirt. That's great. Unfortunately, if you grow up with breasts and then after babies, they look awful. Like, I just felt like mine looked down and I wanted them to look up. So I got my first breast dog after baby number 2. Mm-hmm. And I don't think I even like changed bra size or anything. It just kind of like filled them back up. However, I was the first in my family to get plastic surgery. And there were like a lot of like, please don't wear that swimsuit, or like, please don't wear that.
After the surgery.
After the surgery.
You just wanted to feel restored almost.
I just wanted it started with, my first surgery was a breast dog, just a standard breast dog. And it started with, I recognized that my boobs looked different. My breasts looked different than I had always remembered them as a teenager and before kids. And I didn't breastfeed, like not once. So it wasn't that breastfeeding did anything. It was just that you gain weight, you lose weight. And then if you have natural breast tissue, it just adds gravity. So it ends up like lowering. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I don't like the look of this. Like I want these to look the way I remembered them looking. Yeah. So that was my first surgery. Baby number 2, I had to have an emergency C-section with her.
Of course, Buzz.
Yeah. Of course, I don't know the technical term you will, but my placenta ripped off from my uterus in a contraction.
Oh, okay.
So
I think it's accretia.
Whatever.
I don't know
what it is. And luckily, I was at the hospital just in labor. I was at a 6, but it was an emergency. It was very scary. And my OB had gone upstairs to shower thinking that I was going to deliver in like an hour or so. Brad had gone up to the cafeteria to get some pizza. And next thing I know, I'm being wheeled into an emergency surgery. She was a resident who cut Buzz out.
Oh, man.
And very young guy. And I was petrified. I think that was the most scared I've ever been. Because I thought she was just dead. I think that I hemorrhaged a bit. It was all really scary.
Yeah.
We're both fine. And it was great. But I was left with a panicked resident scar on my abdomen. And not angry at all. Brad actually ran into him because he was at IMC, hospital chain here. And Brad ran into him in the cafeteria like 2 months later when he was there for work. And he was like, dude, like, you saved my kid's life. Like, it was,
oh, wow.
It was cool, but it was a really high and long C-section scar. Yeah. So I remember the first time I saw it, like weeks later at home, and I took all the bandages off and I was looking, and I remember thinking, I'm disfigured. Like, I just thought all I could think about was, okay, now I'm alive, she's alive. The gratitude of that had passed. And it was like, well, shit, this is what I'm going to look like. And I was 28 years old. I was like, okay, so I could never wear a swimsuit again. I could never, there were lots of things about that was mentally tough for me. And then after baby 3, I had a 10 centimeters, so 5 above and 5 below my belly button of ab separation. And so I was like, okay, yes, I had a tummy tuck, but it was almost full. It felt like reconstruction to me because it was a mess.
So, and even here's where I will jump in. And this is what I tell my patients, because even as you tell that story, I can hear like almost a little bit of justification in it, or a little bit of
the boobs. The boobs
shame.
I wanted.
Yeah.
The tummy tuck I did feel.
So
shame.
let's take it away. Let's say you had like barely any diastasis and you had a beautiful low C-section scar, but a little bit of loose skin or some stretch marks. Who cares? There's no difference between you and the girl who like just is like, hey, I don't like this C-section scar. There's a little bit of loose skin. I mean, I don't want to take away from your reasoning.
I don't feel shame that I got it. I think that my honest opinion, and I share this, I have talked to many women into getting a tummy tuck or out, depending on the situation.
Sure.
But for me, it's such a big recovery.
Oh yeah.
The breast dog, like I think I was eating popcorn in bed the next day and being like, I was driving again 2 days after. I didn't have to take narcotics for more than a day. To me, it felt minimal. I have a high pain threshold, so that was fine. But the breast dog felt like a walk in the park. Why I'm justifying it is not because I have shame. I'm sat here talking about it, and I'll talk about what I did after that too, which there was no reason for it, but I just wanted it for me. But the tummy tuck is such an invasive surgery. I think. And
Yeah, that's definitely more.
Such a recovery. It's more of like the recovery and the pain that you go through. And it's not just like even once you can get mobile, like your abdomen, you use it for so much that to the micro tension almost, or what's it called, like with the muscles, like that whole healing process, I think for me was at least 6 months to even start to feel normal.
Yeah.
That's a lot to go through
It
for
is.
a little bit of loose skin and some stretch marks.
It is.
I will still applaud you if you do it. But my whole thing is like, in my opinion, it has to be a pretty severe reason, because it's a pretty severe recovery.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the only, and I don't want to attach shame to your story at all if you don't have any shame there. I see each reason as purely individual.
Yeah.
And so if that little scar or that single stretch mark is a big enough deal for that person, then it's a big enough deal. Then it's just as reasonable, justifiable, and good for them
100%.
as somebody who has this massive
My
issue.
C-section scarf left me feeling disfigured, and I didn't want to feel that way anymore.
Yeah, huge for you.
So I didn't even know about the ab separation till after the surgery, and they told me. So it wasn't like that was the reason I was going in, just so you know. Like it ended up being, and maybe that's why my recovery felt so insane, because there was a reconstruction that kind of had to happen whilst I was doing the tummy tuck, but it was a C-section scar for me that I was like, I want this fixed. So if that to you is like stretch marks, if it's just like a pooch, if it's the fact that you just want a flat freaking stomach, what if it makes you, if you look at your body and it's something that you're like, I don't like the way this looks. I didn't like the way my boobs looked down. I didn't like my C-section scar. After I had my tummy tuck, I didn't like how boxy my abdomen looked. Like I don't have wide hips. So after that, I felt like my abdomen looked like a box. So then that's when I came to see you, and you lipoed like my whole abdomen area and did skin tightening, which was like major because I didn't have anything on my back. So I needed that. And you redid my breasts because I had lost all my baby weight at that point, and my boobs look different and I needed different implants in there. So you tightened up the pocket. So again, it was like, hey, the 3 times the charm. Like now, like we fixed one thing and my body has still changed. I'm 34. My body had changed again. And it was like, now I need this fixed and I know you can fix it. So I basically needed an artist to carve my abdomen section even more so than it had been from the tummy tuck, because the tummy tuck alone was not the result I wanted.
Sure. That was maybe there are a few times in my career that I'm as complimented as having you ask me to do that. Because
well, I had to watch you for several years.
That's fair. But to have like having your own people, like your nurses, your reps, your employees come to you and say, hey, I want you to do this for me. People who see your work every single day, people who know other surgeons and say, you're the person I want. That is, I mean, it's a huge ego boost for sure, but it's also just a really good compliment. So thank you for that.
Oh yeah, of course.
The other thing I will tell you, thank you for, this is going to be just blow up Beth's ego right here. But there's no shame in plastic surgery. That's from you.
Yeah.
That is from you. So this whole journey of me coming on a podcast and me getting on this soapbox, you really solidified that for me. And I knew that I felt a little bit differently about plastic surgery than some of my colleagues. I knew that I wanted to share why I thought plastic surgery was very empowering. And it was, we've talked about this on this podcast multiple times. It was the friggin' billboard that then led to you telling me there's no shame in plastic surgery. So
yeah, I remember getting that phone call from you. I was in the line at Swig, shockingly, and I had my kids in the car. You were just like, Beth, I'm getting these comments about this. And I was like, who cares? If you take this down, you're letting them shame you, and there's no shame in getting plastic surgery. That was the whole point. That was a joke. It was a joke of the billboard, which was hilarious. And for anyone to be upset about that was their problem, not yours. But There is no shame in it. There's no shame there shouldn't be shame in anything anymore. Listen, do I think everyone needs to go out there and get plastic surgery? No. If you don't want to, you shouldn't have to. But if there's something about your body and it's affecting your confidence and you don't feel empowered because of it, there's no shame in going and fixing it. As long as you're getting plastic surgery for the right reasons, I will be on the side, like, clapping you along. And again, like, I actually don't know. I don't have very many friends that haven't invested in the way they look in some way, whether it's plastic surgery or fillers or Botox or, and you should, like, life's too short to be living in a body that you aren't proud of.
Yeah.
That's it. And I don't think people even realize the little things that are available to, like, nip and tuck and tweak and, you know.
There's a whole lot there.
I don't want to like go down the journey of, like, all the different surgeries, but I had a friend call me after, 3 babies. Things changed down there, and she was like, is this normal? Like, is this something like that can be fixed? I'm like, it is so common. Do you know it's like a 13-minute surgery? You can go in and have that taken care of. You don't have to live the rest of your life feeling like your special area is disformed because you pushed 3 kids out. And it's a labiaplasty is one of my very common surgery.
That's one of my favorite surgeries.
Deal. And it's no big deal either. It's like, but women don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so then they think they just have to live with it, and you don't.
Yeah. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite surgery? That's one of my very favorite surgeries. And I get a weird look at first, but it's one of my favorite surgeries because, like you said, it's quick. It takes me 30 to 45 minutes.
Probably your margins on that one's a good one.
Yeah. And the margins are great.
The margins are great because you're technically operating, but it doesn't take any materials.
Nope, we're not using any implants. We're just using some sutures.
No materials.
Reimbursement's great.
Fast. It's not a strenuous surgery for you.
And it makes a huge difference. And it's a difference you see right away. It's, sometimes we do surgeries where like a rhinoplasty. I'm like, okay, this looks good, but I know I'm not going to see the final result for a year.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to sit with. But with a labiaplasty, it's done, it's on the table, you're like, that looks fabulous.
Yeah.
And it looks so much better than it did before.
And you know that her confidence level, not that we're walking around without pants on, but her confidence level will be different. It just will be different. And that's something, so I have, like, on my podcast, I come up with the term, like, WWTMD, which is like, what would Tits McGee do? And it's not because I think everyone should go out there and get a new set of tits, but there's just no one more confident than a woman who just got a breast aug walking along the pool for the first time in her swimsuit. Oh, yeah. It's almost like you see that confidence that maybe that area she felt insecure about before, and now, like, it's just every time I see it, I can't help but smile. And I'm like, okay, I wish we all had that confidence all the time anyway, but sometimes we don't. And sometimes if it's because you need to go get a labiaplasty, then go get one. Yeah. Like, life's too short to not be proud of who you are and what you look like and what you have to offer the world. And it's not just looks, but looks contribute to your confidence. So get up and go live your life like your Tits McGee, for crying out loud. Like, that's what you should do. And if you can't, because it's something that you want to address, and go see a plastic surgeon.
Trying to think of the Tits McGee version of a labiaplasty. We'll come up with a name. So
go south really fast. I
have a story that ties into that. This confidence of the woman getting a breast aug walking across the pool. Before I put and this goes back to the billboard. Before I put this billboard up, and this is the temple billboard that said God's remodeling his churches, or his temple, isn't it time to remodel yours?
Even God renovates the temples.
Yeah. So I called one of my good friends who she's sort of a big deal in, like, the feminist community.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's a thing, the feminist community.
They haven't called me, so I wouldn't know.
She's very looked up to. And I asked her, like, is this okay? And she asked me, like, well, what's the purpose behind it? And I explained my reasoning behind it. She said, absolutely. And she said, let me tell you my own experience. And she had children and had lost all of her breast volume, didn't feel like a woman anymore. She said she would walk and push her stroller around and feel like people thought she was the nanny or the sister, or just didn't feel like
which they won't have,
a woman.
but she thought that.
She
thought
felt
that
that
about herself, which is more powerful.
And so she did a breast augmentation, and she had several women in her community reach out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would do this. That's the most anti-feminine thing ever. And she's like, actually, I think it's maybe the most feminine thing I could do, because I've never felt more feminine with this than before in my life.
She didn't go get a breast aug because other people told her she needed to. She went and did it for her.
Mm-hmm.
I am really against spouses or people trying to influence others to go change the way they look. I'm wildly against that. But if you're doing it for you, I mean, it's your body.
Yeah.
It's your body. It's your life. You have the right, you don't like the way I do my hair, or, what clothes I'm wearing, or that I put filler on my bottom lip. Not my problem. Like, I like clearly, and I've actually said this to my mom before. I'm like, well, clearly I like the way I look. That's why I keep doing it. So like, that's all that matters to me. And that is why it's a movement of empowering, which is, I think this industry gets a bad rap of being vain or being vapid. And that's really not what we're doing. We're trying to make people feel confident in their own skin. Why wouldn't we want to do that?
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
Why wouldn't we want more people that felt confident? I think that we'd have a lot less mean people, for one.
God, you're a good sales rep.
We need to get back into sales. It's been a while.
No, but you believe it and you're authentic. That's
Yeah. I remember when that billboard came down, though. I was upset. I was upset about it.
I regret it. I had made the decision to take it down before I called you. And it's always been a regret, because I was going on the news the next day. They had picked it up and they wanted to get my take on it. Mm-hmm. And you had said, you go on that news and you tell them, I won't be shamed in taking this down. There's no shame in plastic surgery. And to this day, I wish I would have done that. But I couldn't deal with the negative feedback I was getting. I was up nights reading the mean comments about me. And then I couldn't deal with, I was, barely 2 years into practice and I was getting 1-star review bombed.
Yeah. But it's funny because I don't know locally how many people actually read Google reviews when it comes to plastic surgeons. I think that a lot of it is word of mouth and referral now. And I still get messages, text messages, DMs all the time. Like, I want to get plastic surgery. Who should I go to? And my question is always like, what is it that you want to have done? It just depends. It depends on what you want to have done. Right. But there's just like no shame in it. Why I'm never going to be like, well, oh, really? Oh, really? You want to go get your breasts done? You want to get a tummy tuck? Wow. Well, that's cheating. If I hear that one more time, like, how?
No.
I know plenty of people who got tummy tucks and are really in shape. And I know plenty of people who got tummy tucks and they're not in shape. It's not the be all end all. It's not like the hidden pill.
No, not at all.
Looking great either.
You've got it's still a lifestyle change that has to happen.
Yeah.
If you want to maintain results, you've got to have a lifestyle change.
With everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say that about like getting lasers on your face and addressing, let's say you've got like a bunch of acne scars or hyperpigmentation on your face. If you go get it dealt with and then you don't maintain and upkeep with good products at home, you're just wasting your time. It's like, what a waste. You might as well just set fire to your money in the first place.
Yeah. Listen, I finished 75 hard a month ago.
Which,
6
congratulations,
weeks ago.
by the way.
You.
That's a lot.
I lost 55 pounds. Mm-hmm. And when I finished, I set a stop sign. So I have a stop sign on the scale. It's like, if I get back to this, that means we lock it down. We go back into 75 hard, whatever we got to do to say, okay, we're not, because I'm not going back.
Okay.
But in the last 4 to 6 weeks, I've noticed things just kind of slowly creeping up there, because I'm not doing 2 45-minute workouts.
Yeah.
But it's developed good habits. Like I get up and walk 45 minutes every morning. I still do that. I do my reading, but I also realize it's not done. Like you don't anybody can do something for 75 days.
Yeah.
I need to be the person who works out regularly, who eats healthy regularly. And so it's not hey, I did this, I'm done, and now I'm here.
I mean, you hear it all the time. People are like, oh, I've got this vacation next month. Like I got to diet really fast because I got to look good for this vacation. And you're like, well, maybe you will look really good for that vacation. And then you'll get home and then you'll kind of balloon or you'll fall back to your habits. It's more of like a lifestyle change. Like you do 75 hard to kind of be the stepping point, and then you want to continue. It's the same with surgery. If you want to feel more confident in your own skin, that's a great starting point. But then after that, you still got to go invest in yourself and your brain and your confidence, and it's not going to solve all the problems. And I think that's when we sometimes see like the surgery addicts, where it's constantly like, oh, I need another boost in confidence. And so I know I got it when I went under the knife, so I'm going to keep going under the knife.
Yeah.
Some of us just like surgery because it's like a really great nap.
It is.
And also the recovery is like you are left the hell alone for like days. It's like, what else could I do? I need a break from life. Like, what else can I go do so that I could be, doted on for a week at home?
Come get surgery, get a nap, and get doted on for a week at home.
Get the best nap of your life. And then
I'm going to segue into your home life for that.
Okay.
Because you and Brad, who we've already discussed Brad, but
he's had enough time.
I want you to talk about your relationship with Brad, because you guys have, I think, a pretty unique story.
Yeah. So Brad and I met, I was 19, 20-ish. I don't know. We were young. He's 2 years older than I am. So we met in college, and actually we met in high school, but didn't really date or anything until college. Got married after 2 years of dating. So it wasn't fast by Mormon standards. Maybe for other people, we were definitely young though.
World standards, yeah.
World standards, very fast, very young. But for Utah standards, we weren't that young and it wasn't that fast. Okay. But we were only married for 9 months. Got divorced. We were divorced for about 2 years, and then we got remarried. So now we've been married the second time for a decade.
I love it.
A little over a decade, yeah.
A lot of people don't survive that.
No, I mean, I can imagine. It's not for the faint of heart. It wasn't like it was wasn't like the best time of my life. I wouldn't describe it as that, no.
Can I ask, what brought you guys back together post-divorce?
Oh, I think it was a combination of factors, but really if I had to, it was the right person, wrong time. So we felt rushed to get married at the time because of that's what everyone around us did. It wasn't that we didn't want to. It's just we love each other. We know we want to be together. So this is the next step. We weren't ready. My parents were going through a really awful divorce at the time. And Brad definitely had some growing up to do and just world perspective. He was still playing football at the U, and he lived at his parents' house. Mm-hmm. So he just had some growing up to do. When we were divorced, so he didn't want the divorce. Mm-hmm. At all. And so when we were divorced, he would want to hang out. We would sometimes hang out, and then we'd hang out one night, and then he'd be like, well, I want to get remarried, and I'd be like, I'm out of here. And it was this dance back and forth for about a year, and then finally he was like, I can't keep doing this. He was like, it's breaking my heart. I can't keep seeing you, and this, if this is not what it's going to be, then you need to let me go. So I was like, okay. So we were didn't speak for I think about 5 months-ish. I don't know. And for me, it was more of just gaining perspective of the world, and also seeing dating other people that I was okay, so they have some attributes that Brad doesn't have, but they don't have some of his good ones. There's just no perfect person out there, and when you love someone, you love them for who they are instead of trying to change them into what they are. And I also had to gain perspective of, what really are your non-negotiables in a relationship, because, okay, he's messy. I'd rather take a messy husband that supports me and doesn't lie to me than, some of the creeps that were out there. So I was the one who reached out to him, like the time we got back together, and it was Valentine's Day.
This was after kind of 6 months of being like, okay, we're letting go.
Yeah. And I think he had like moved on. He was kind of dating someone else at that point. And it was Valentine's Day, and I don't even know why. I'm like a more yellow energy and red energy, where it's just like, I'll have these impulse thoughts, and then I like the red in me is like, well, I'm just going to act on it without like thinking it through. And it was like Valentine's Day, and I was just getting my nails done, like blah-de-da, like going to go out with like a bunch of girlfriends that night. And I had just texted him like, happy Valentine's Day, Brad, like, you know, back to old patterns of like, oh, wonder what Brad's doing. Maybe enough time's passed. And he texted me back and was like, happy Valentine's Day. And he had said like, something like along the lines of, I really hope that you find what you're looking for out there. My biggest worry is that one day I'm going to look into my future kids' eyes and wish they were half yours. And I was like,
wow.
And I remember being like sat there getting my nails done, reading it, and then just like silent tears, crying. I mean, I'm sure the cute Vietnamese lady doing my nails was like talking shit on me to her, to her neighbor.
For sure.
She's like, well, this chick, like she could not get it together. And I was just like, wow. So I took another month, because it was March when we started actually dating again. Because I was like, okay, I think I have feelings for him still, but I can't go back to him again unless this is actually what I want, because I can't hurt him again. So I just took some time. Then when I was like, yeah, I know for a fact this is what I want, then I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I kind of want to get back together. And we went and saw his marriage counselor together and separate for about 4 months, and then we eloped and got remarried. But it's funny because we still fight. I mean, we still fight. We're breathing adults. So, he still like jumps up my tits a lot and annoys me on the regular. But it's just never, after what we went through, it's just, there's stuff that we're like, okay, this is not going to be, we just never let things get to a certain point ever, where it's just like, okay, at the end of the day, I'll never even agree to do anything or go anywhere that I know would hurt him, or vice versa. Like I joke, like, I would never divorce you again. Sometimes I wish like you might die, but like I don't, like, wish like tonight you would, you're just annoying. But yeah.
I think that's actually really a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful story. I always have.
Oh, thanks.
I don't think I knew that about the 6 month letting go.
Yeah.
And I was reading A Return to Love. I'm like halfway through. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's a phenomenal book.
Should read that.
And part of this book that I was reading just the other day talks about relationships and letting go of relationships. And sometimes the letting go part of a relationship that didn't work out for whatever reason or another is the hardest part. It's even harder than a death, because in a death, there's permanence. It's done. And letting go of somebody, they're across town dating somebody else. And so it can be extremely hard, but through actually letting go, you can come to love that person even more than you did maybe in the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's really beautiful that you guys came back together with that renewed love. I have a relationship with my ex-wife that is, I think, very good, especially compared to people who I talk to who are divorced. But as we're talking, I kind of this podcast has been therapy for me. Like I realize things as I'm talking on this podcast.
For sure. I mean, I do that every week.
And I think that, and it took me a long, long time to let go of my ex-wife. A long time. And it was hard. And she had moved on, and she had, moved in with her now husband, who's my kid's stepdad, who was great. And once I did let go, like, I actually can confidently say I love her more now than I did probably for the 10 years of our marriage.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And I'm not trying to make a correlation. I'm she's got a beautiful marriage and two kids with her husband, and we're not going to get back together.
Yeah.
But that letting go was an important part of me being able to love her the way that I do today.
I think part of it is just growing up and understanding that people aren't perfect, right? There's not, when I am like nagging on Brad, or like typically when we do fight even now, it's because I have some expectation on him, or he has some expectation on me for what he wants me to be doing that I'm not doing. And then when you're just like, this is who I am and I'm doing the best, and you're my champion for me doing the best, it just creates a different bond. So of course, like, you guys share 2 wonderful kids together. You want nothing but for Hillary to be the absolute best version, because she's your children's mother. So why would you want anything less than that, and vice versa? And I think that when you are someone's champion, you're constantly trying to find ways to look for the best in them and promote the best in them, and what you think about becomes your reality.
Yeah.
So when you're looking for ways to be, fucking pissed at your spouse, you're gonna be, and you're gonna look for all the things that annoy you about them. And it's just, for me, it becomes a decision. Like, I just decided a little over 10 years ago, like, he's my person, he's going to be my person. And that I've never had to remake that decision. Like, once a decision was made, it was made. And so even when things get hard, or we're sat there and we're like, oh gosh, we got to pivot because whatever's happening here, sometimes it's like in parenting, sometimes it's in our own personal dynamic. Right now, we're kind of going through this with like our work-life balance, and we're both like, we've got to pivot. Something here's not working. We got to figure something out here. You do it because you decided that this is how it's going to be. And you and Hillary, well, not Hillary, because we're talking about you can only control yourself. You decided however many years ago that you wanted the best for her, because you let go of like the expectations or the frustration or the hurt that you went through. And once you get to that point, I think it's just really easy to love people when you're rooting for them to be great.
Yeah, we got to a point where we both realized, probably at separate times, but we got to a point where we both realized, we were pretty shitty spouses. Let's agree on that. But we're both really good parents. So let's focus on that. And that's the whole core of our relationship. And I don't know, when that decision was made, everything was easier, right?
Yeah.
Money's never been an issue. I mean, we still have struggles sometimes, right? I mean, but our struggles are always based around the kids.
Yeah.
It's she's having a problem with the kids, or I'm having a problem with the kids, or the kid, and kids in divorce will tell each parent what they want to hear.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes as parents, you're like, you come down to that kid level and you believe what this child is telling you, and you start to doubt that person's championing you. And that's what will actually cause an argument.
Yeah.
But when you come back to realize, okay, hold on. Like, why would she be, wanting anything less of me? I don't want anything less of her. I got to understand that this is my kid that's just wanting me to feel good. And it resolves and it's over and we move on.
But you can do that now as well. And that's not, unfortunately, the case for a lot of people, even within marriages, within friendships, within families. You also should know your line, though, when it is. I'm not saying like you decide to be with someone, and then if it gets toxic or it gets bad, or you end up being on different paths, I'm not saying, you made a decision, so you have to stick it out either.
Sure.
You can let go and move on with your life and still be like, I love and respect what we had, but that period or that chapter of our life is done. Yeah. And you move on from it.
Yeah. But that's why the letting go. Like, the letting go is hugely important.
Yeah. I actually remember I had a friend, she reached out to me. Brad and I were remarried, and she was married and having a hard time. And she had said, I don't know, Beth, I think maybe we should just like get divorced like you and Brad did. I think we just need a break. And then like down the road, if we want to get remarried, it will be. And I was like, okay. if you want something to work, I don't recommend getting divorced. Like, we didn't get divorced thinking that it was like, well, we're going to take a little break right now. And then, like, maybe if it works out, we'll get remarried down the road. Like, that was not the intention. Yeah. We got divorced because it was done. It was over. And I didn't want it anymore. We luckily found our way back to each other. And I've heard it's actually not that uncommon. But that wasn't the way to save the relationship. Was not to get divorced. And I think sometimes people hear our story and they're like, oh yeah, I could do that. Like, I feel like I just need like a 2-year break. No, it's not. That was not the intent behind it.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes it's just time to let go. And and walk away from it. My advice is similar whenever I have friends or anybody ask me about a divorce. I'm like, oh, don't. My gut reaction is absolutely not. Do whatever you can to save it, work it out, fix it, especially if you have kids in there. Like, it's just going to, your life doesn't, especially with kids, your life doesn't just go on and this person's no longer there.
No way.
They're in your life forever. I had a friend call me, but that is not always the answer. I had a friend call me a few years ago, and hey, I've confided in a couple of our other friends, and I think that my marriage is over. I think I need to get divorced. And I gave him here was my problem. I didn't dive more into it. Yeah. I just immediately went to absolutely not. You can't do that. You got to save this marriage. No way. And I immediately pick up the phone and call my buddy the other one he had confided in. I'm like, hey man, just got off the phone with our boy. Don't worry. Told him not to do it. Like, this is crazy. He needs to save his marriage. And my friend's like, what did you do? We have been, do you even know the details? This is a marriage that he has got to get out of. It's done. And he told me the whole story. And with all of the information, was like, oh shit, he needs to be out of this relationship.
Right. The thing is I think, I'm not an expert, so I'm not even going to pretend to be. I think the difference is you should walk away when you know it's absolutely done. So if that means that if you are married with kids and you have worked on it and you have tried and it's still not working, then that's different. I think if you know you can walk away not having regrets is when you should walk away. If there are any regrets, or it's because love and hate is so close together. Like, those feelings are so close. Like, when you still have feelings for someone, it's really easy to hate them. So there's that toxic period after every relationship and it's always funny. There's always one person in the breakup. You can always tell the one person who's like vindictive and vicious and toxic and doing things on purpose to hurt the other one because they still have feelings. And then there's the one that you're just like, oh, I feel bad. I wish them all the best. And they're not the one they're the one that probably was the one who wanted to end it. Yeah. Because they were like, this is done and I feel at peace that it's done, and so I can move away. And then the other person, it's like love and hate, they're so close together. So if that's going on, most of the time it's because someone still is harboring feelings.
The way that was explained to me, and I had this major aha moment in my divorce, was I don't know if this is just a Utah thing or not, but you have to go to a divorce class before your divorce gets approved.
I didn't.
I don't know. I did.
Maybe I failed the class. I don't know.
Well, it might be if you have kids. I think it might be if you have kids. Because when you got divorced, you didn't have kids.
Yeah, my sister got divorced with kids, and she didn't have to go to a class.
I don't know. I got sent to a class.
Okay, so just you then. So you got sent to a divorce class.
Just me. Makes sense.
Okay, this is more making a lot of sense to me. Someone got you and made you go to a divorce class, and you believe them. Yes. Okay.
I was living in Houston, and I legitimately planned a trip to come to Utah to go to a divorce class.
Okay.
And anyway. It ended up being good because I was still having real struggles. I was still very close with this love-hate thing and was getting furious and toxic. And this guy gets up and he's giving this class, and he gives a similar story. He's like, I went to sign my divorce papers and I'm like devastated and I'm crying all the way there. And I walk in and there's my ex-wife. She's got this big grin on her face. She could not be happier to be there and get this done. And she skips out of the courthouse and it's done. And he said, I realized then that any relationship, divorce that's ending goes through a grieving process. and each person grieves the relationship at different levels. And he said, that's when I realized, oh, she's already grieved this relationship.
Probably while it was still happening.
Yeah, she's gone through the doubt, all the stages of grief, and is done. And I'm still in denial or wherever and haven't finished. And that was me. Like, I had not gone through all of the stages of grief to actually be done with it.
Yeah.
And that was a huge realization for me.
Isn't it interesting? I know it's hard because...
How did this happen on this?
So I know this
we might scrap all this.
We might have to just take all this out, but it's just interesting how so much of like who you are and your journey is like who you choose to spend your time with, right? Like your partner. Like I think like I wonder where Brad and I would be if we never got remarried. Like I wonder, you know, what I'd be doing and like, yeah, if I would even live here still, all that stuff. It's hard because on one hand you're like, yes, you want to make sure that if there's something wrong that you like fight for the relationship, but in some cases you're like, this isn't working and it's taking you both down a path that life's too short for you to be on, and you need to. I mean, I had that conversation with my little sister. She was married. They had 2 little kids. Not good. Just nothing like, oh yeah, you've got to get out. Like he wasn't, you know, abusive or anything. No one had cheated, but it was not the right relationship for her. It wasn't even before they got married, but you know, no one listens to me. And, but she was not fulfilled. She was not like the light of life wasn't like in her. There was no vibrance in what she was doing anymore. And, you know, she got the pressure of, well, you're sealed. You've got to make, he originally wanted it. And then he decided he didn't. And so he was trying to like, no, let's make this work. And, you know, she was getting pressure from our family. Some family members got like, well, you're sealed. You've got to make it work. And I was like, okay, let's say you stay with him and then you're going to be with him for eternity. Do you want to be with him for eternity? He's an asshole. He's treating you like dog shit. And you're miserable with him. You want that forever? Like, what does this even mean? What are we talking about? She doesn't want to be with him for even one more second. So why would we guilt the rest of her life into it? And yeah, she's remarried now. I remember I specifically said to her, this does not have to be your story. This does not have to be your life. There's someone out there that will like set your soul on fire, and everyone deserves that. Like no one should settle. Sometimes we've married for whatever reasons that are wrong, and we've just changed, and people evolve, and you have the right to evolve as you grow. And she's remarried now with two little kids with her second husband, and they have to navigate the divorce thing. But she's come alive again. Yeah. And I think everyone deserves that. And I mean, Brad and I, not to get too personal with you, we've seen that with you, like versus like when you were in your last relationship to now. And it's just like, okay, we didn't know what was going on. Why should we? We're not like, you know, living in the house with you, and we're not around you all the time. People see what we want them to see a lot of the time when we are going through stages of struggling. But it's palpable when someone is on the right path in their life and when they're not. For those that are around them and love them, whether that's the wrong partner, the wrong job, the wrong friend group, the wrong diet, the wrong like addictions, whatever it is, it's palpable if you're around people who love you when you're on the right path and when you're on the wrong path. Yeah.
Oh, this is, you know, I'm still a mess, and
everyone's a mess.
Everybody's a mess.
Everyone is a mess. Everyone's crazy.
You said you wondered where you would be had you not still been married. Oh, you could be like me. You could be a total mess trying to figure it out and be single. And
a total mess trying to figure it out. You own multiple businesses. You're very smart. You're surrounded by great friends. You're on a path of self-discovery. I mean, I think you...
Right, but
I know it's self-deprecation, but also you have to recognize you've come a long way.
Oh, I will agree with, but I have definitely come a long way. I've made a lot of growth, but I also kind of don't ever want to diminish the mistakes that I've made, and because the mistakes that I've made are a big reason that I'm still sitting here single trying to figure it out.
So you've made mistakes. So let me ask you a question. Do you have regrets?
No. Well, what I've realized, I regret a lot of choices I made. Absolutely. What's come to help me the most in my life, and we talked about this a little bit with my therapist who came on the show, is there is a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is good, shame is bad. And so to be guilty over the poor choices that I made in relationships or just in life is okay. I know that those choices don't define who I am, right? If I've lied, that doesn't mean that at my core I'm a liar. If I've cheated, that doesn't mean that at my core I'm a cheater. Shame is when you take those bad decisions and say that they define you. And you're like, oh.
They become absolute, which none of us are absolute because you can pivot tomorrow.
No, I think, by and large, most of humanity at their core are good people. And so that's what's helped me the most in my life, is to say, hey, this doesn't excuse any bad behavior. This doesn't justify anything that I've done that's hurt other people, but I know it doesn't define me. And so I'm going to move on from that and try the best that I can to move back to my core, which is what I believe a good person, somebody who's constantly trying to do the right thing. That's helped.
I think that's true. And also if you recognize, to me, mistake and regret are two completely different things, because you can make mistakes, but then you learn from them and you also go fix it, which a lot of the time is apologizing to those that you've hurt, even if it wasn't intentional. We still need to take ownership on apologizing.
For sure.
But then regretting it is different, because someone asked me this last year, like, do you have any regrets? Or what's your biggest regret? And I'm like,
nothing.
Probably a food choice. Like probably eating a meal that like I shouldn't have eaten and it wasn't even that good. But it's so hard to say I don't I love my life, not 24/7, but I'm a firm believer that you are living the life you want, because if you didn't want it, you would pivot and change something about it. And so it's really hard to be like, I regret that because it's led me to who I am today. Have some of my bad mistakes been a lot of work to fix? Yeah. If I had to go on an apology train before in life, yeah, for sure. And it's probably going to happen again. But if it kind of helps shape who you are today, sat where you're at, it's hard to be like, okay, do I really regret that though? Inevitably, sometimes you'd be like, I regret doing that and I wish that I had worked at that or whatever. But I got to say, I there's nothing that I could turn around and say, I regret this. I don't have any. I definitely made mistakes, and there's some that I've kicked my ass in the lesson section of it. Yeah. But I feel like it's just, I've walked away from it better in the long run, or different, or whatever, but it's led me to who I am today. I like that. That's a really beautiful way to think of it. I mean, maybe people regret bad surgeries, though. Sorry, I should type back in. That would probably be a regret.
That's a perfect tie-in to bring us all full circle.
That's probably the one regret. Although you can still fix it. It's just going to be an expensive fix.
Yeah, that's where my bread and butter is people regretting bad surgery.
That's true.
That was fun. Took an unexpected turn. Yeah. I tell you, this is therapy. You do these beautiful little short snippets. So before we end, I want you to promote whatever you want to promote. Well, Elevate 365 should be one of them.
Elevate 365. So it's a podcast I started, probably a process after I had my last child, my son. I went through, on paper, my life was all my goals that I had wanted. We had just moved into the big house and neighborhood we wanted. Brad had just been elevated into a leadership position in med device. I think I just bought a car that I'd always wanted. We just had our last kid. I was in the job that I wanted. I actually had just got the promotion for the implant role. Mm-hmm. And I remember just not being happy and looking in the mirror and being I don't recognize myself. I'm just not in a place where I am. I feel like I'm Beth. So I went on this whole kind of path of finding fulfillment again and finding myself and finding a good balance in life. And I think that it has just become my passion project. Originally, it was for women in similar situations, maybe like young kids in life, or feel like their life is not their own, like their lives being dictated by everyone else's needs and wants. That could be a mother, a business owner, anything. So originally was like younger moms, and now it's like actually a lot of people can probably feel like they get to the place where they're like, I'm reactionary, I'm not being proactive with my time or my life. And I just decided to start this podcast, the worst time in my life to do it, when I'm like never been more busy. But it's just a passion project of mine. Every week I like to share in the humorous way, because I don't like things to be too heavy, but something that I've seen out there that's maybe a need or a little tweak that we need to make. Because one thing that was overwhelming to me was I'd read these self-help books, and it was like, holy shit, I can't do all these things. And so for me, it was like the reason why it's Elevate 365. It's little things you can do to elevate your life every single day. Elevate is the French word for raise, like releve, like a ballerina. She does an arabesque on a flat foot. It's great, but she raises onto her toes, and it makes all the difference. And it's a very tiny movement, and that's the reason why I went with the name. But it's every week, it's one little thing you can do to help elevate your life and just slowly get to a place where you're happy and fulfilled. I feel like the world would be a better place if human beings all felt like fulfillment every day. And it's different for everyone, so it's hard to navigate what each of us should do.
Well, I think one of the greatest ones I've taken away is eye contact.
Oh gosh, it's
you talk about eye contact. It is, and I realized the importance of eye contact when I was serving LDS mission.
Oh yeah.
And I of course at the time tied it to my religious beliefs, where I felt like I could see who had the spirit and who did not. And now but you know, we kind of laugh, but what do you think I use it to see authenticity
or connection
or connection. And so, you know, maybe it's the same thing. Maybe
I get on the floor now with my kids. Like, we're having issues with the 3-year-old not behaving at school, but he'll tell me that he is. And so I get on the floor now on my knees so that we're eye to eye, and I'll tell him, like, keep looking at my eyes when I talk to you. I can't, you're doing this, and I need you to stay looking at me, because I need to know it's registering. And I just, this is our connection to other people.
It makes all the difference in the world.
It does. I mean, there are times where it can be like awkward when you get like the starers. Like, okay.
Why are you still looking at me?
What to do? Anyway. Well, thanks for having me on. This was a riot.
Thank you for coming. I think you're one of, this is not just to blow you up, but you and Brad are one of the most influential couples in my life.
Oh, thank you.
Who are,
that means a lot, and I'll speak on behalf of him. That means a lot.
No, there's a handful of people, some of them just single individuals, some of them couples, but a handful of people who, if I'm at rock bottom, or if I need something, those are the go-to people.
Oh.
And you and Brad are one of those people.
Well, we are honored, but yes, we are always a champion of our people. And like, you know, I don't love a lot of people. So when I love someone, it's like I am loyal to the death for them. So we're excited for you. We're excited for this platform that you have. And hopefully, if you're listening to this and you want to get plastic surgery and you feel embarrassed or shamed or guilty for it, don't at all. Go do it. Here's the truth. People might talk about it for 10 seconds, and then they're going to go on with their day thinking about themselves. Everyone's thinking about themselves. So they're not even thinking about you. Don't worry about it. So
perfect.
Best advice I can give you. No one cares. They're all selfish. They're all just thinking about themselves.
Perfect. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening to The Naked Patient Beyond the Operating Room. I'm Dr. Nicholas Howland. Please remember that every patient who appears on this podcast has consented to discuss their story and their surgery on the podcast. That way we remain HIPAA compliant. This is a free podcast. The best thing that you can do for us is to leave us a review online. Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you'd like to hear. Let us know how we can improve. If you are curious about anything related to plastic surgery, You can reach out to me on Instagram at Dr. Nicholas Howland, and I typically respond there, or you can reach us at the office at 801-571-2020, or we have an online form you can fill out at the website, www.howlandplasticsurgery.com. Any of our coordinators would be happy to help you. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Naked Patient Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Till next time.